Good morning and welcome to the program Perspectives. Perspectives this morning, we'll be taking a global outlook, and the global outlook today would be about the declaration by UNESCO that 13th of February, and we're talking about Sunday, yesterday, is World Radio Day. What's World Radio Day? And what are the things to know about the radio and how it is being used? And so we're going to be talking about the radio journalist and the radio itself and how it gets to people, how to get content and all of that. These are, the things that we'll be looking at this day. And the theme for this year's World Radio Day, WRD, is Radio and Trust. Radio and Trust. Now, the question to ask is how well, have you been able to trust your radio? From what you hear on radio, can you put your trust in the radio journalist, the user, and of course the audience out there? And to share thoughts with me this morning on Radio and Trust for this year's World Radio Day is a veteran himself. I'm talking about Chief Fidel Onyeneke. Chief Fidel Onyeneke is a media consultant, a public affairs analyst, a commentator on national and international issues. He's a man that is a guru, as to say, in the profession. And I'm doing a long-distance call to Owerri in Imo State, where I'll be talking this morning with Chief Fidel Onyeneke. Chief Fidel Onyeneke, good morning and glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tori. First of all, let me wish you happy Radio Day, in spite of the fact that it was yesterday.
Thank you.
And then you and your colleagues in your station, because I'm convinced that you are doing a very good job there.
Thank
and
you.
at the same time, wish all radio persons, men and women, very happy Radio Day.
Thank you very much, Chief Fidel Onyeneke. And let's just start this way. I acknowledge that it's Radio Day, World Radio Day, and the theme for this year's Radio Day is Radio and Trust. Now, I want to, give it some, components into it, put some components into it, and first looking at radio in, and the radio journalist. These two people, how they should function, and how we should reach out to the audience out there. For you, starting this way, radio and the trust to have, in radio, what are your thoughts here there?
Well, again, thank you very much. First of all, let me stress that of all the media of communication, radio has remained the most vital, especially in the developing world, because it has the greatest reach. It touches the people directly. It touches human beings directly, no matter where you reside, where you live, and so on. Radio is so powerful that no nation, no society can ever develop, can ever enhance its socio-cultural growth and so on without effective communication through the radio. Yes, we can talk of newspapers, we talk of televisions and so on, we talk of even the social media. But I want to tell you that the greatest of them all is the radio. But the most important thing too is that for radio to continue to maintain its activities, to continue to live up to expectation, there must be that truthfulness in whatever is communicated through the radio. And of course, once you are communicating the truth, once you are using it as a tool for social mobilization, once you are using it as a tool for entertainment, for information, for public enlightenment, and everything is based in facts, truth, and nothing but the truth, then you will enjoy the trust of the people. Whatever you are doing as a radio person or as a radio station and people don't trust you, it simply means that nobody will even listen to you. You can never achieve the objectives of radio. So the bottom line is, first of all, truthfulness on the part of the radio people and the radio stations, then trust, building trust, so that your listeners, your people, those who listen to you will also have that trust. That is the only way you can achieve your aims and objectives.
Yes, I hear you're talking about the power of the radio here. But again, it's still based on trust. we see the power of the radio, and I just like to take you to the Hutus and the Tutsis. We can never forget that genocide, in history, and what radio did. And so, has that happened in our country? Let's come back home to Nigeria now. What the radio had done, checking out the history, because again, Nigeria had a dark moment, so to say. The civil war is not one that we're ready to forget, and that's talking about 67 to 70. The power of the radio then, and of course a wider picture of the Hutus and the Tutsis.
You see, thank you. That's why history is very, very important, because you are talking of the issue of the Hutus and Tutsis. Radio caused a lot of mayhem. Radio was used to destabilize the system. And I want to tell you that apart from what happened in Rwanda and some other places, that during the Nigerian Civil War, misapplication and misuse of radio also caused some problems. It caused chaos. It led to chaos. That is why wherever you are using a radio, wherever there are radio stations, one has to be extremely careful. And only professionals must be used. Now, in the present day Nigeria, we've gotten a situation where there are some clandestine radio stations either operated by people who may or may not be identified and so on and so forth, trying to fight a particular cause. And in doing this, everybody listens. There is no limitation to who listens to who picks the signals of a radio station. So whatever you are pushing out is either educating the people, or is either indoctrinating the people, or making the people disbelieve the government. I'm talking about the dangers of abuse of use of radio. And that's exactly the problem most countries, including Nigeria, are facing. Okay, now you talk of terrorism. People use some radio signals to also push wrong information. People also use some radio stations to try to use it to destabilize the system. The long and short of my submission is that radio is an instrument, radio is a system that needs pure carefulness because of, first of all, its reach, and secondly, because people trust the radio stations. If not for these days, we are talking of mistrust, and that is why the United Nations is even bothered, and that's why they are using the team this year. In the past, everybody believed what was heard on radio stations. Remember, time was in this country when Nigerians would tune to BBC, VOA, and so on, and then information they get. Even when London and so on will be giving information about Nigeria, Nigerians immediately will believe that information, and because of the trust they have. When we got some other bigger stations like West Radio Nigeria Ibadan, Radio Nigeria Kaduna, and so on, everybody glued to it. Everybody tuned to it, and whatever information they gave was taken as nothing but the truth. So the point I'm making is that bastardization of some of these things due to unprofessional conduct and so on is something that can cause mayhem, which must be checked, of course.
Okay, and Chief, again, another thing that's coming up now is that radio is seen as a business. People do it for business, ventures to make profit and all of that. And I want you to look at it, the business part of it, and of course the practitioners too. Now we hear and we see that today most people just do not have any radio training and do not have any, content training and all of that. And we see them; they are the the professionals on radio today, and we are forced to listen to these people. So, what are your thoughts here about who goes into the practice of the radio journalist, and what must he, have to be in this business? And for the businessman that uses it as a venture to make money, does not care what is put out, long as adverts are coming on the station, and so he can make money.
Let me tell you, the bane of the media in this country is the recent commercialization of radio stations. Government did not even let matters when they said when they commercialized most of the government-owned radio stations. And I want to tell you that radio, in the real sense of it, is supposed to be rendering social services, purely sponsored, purely run by the government, in order to ensure unity, peace, progress, enhance democracy, enhance good leadership, and so on. But unfortunately, government introduced a commercial aspect of it, where if you don't pay, they can no longer give radio stations, fund them very well. They wanted to go into business, place commercials, and use it in order to pay staff salaries and run the radio station, which to me is wrong and will continue to be wrong. Let me tell you why it is wrong. He who pays the piper tells the tune. And of course, you're not in business. If you place a commercial in a radio station, I'm talking of government owned first of all, you place a commercial, whoever is placing that commercial will tell you where he wants it. He might say, I need it news adjacent, I need it announcement, let it be mid-news, let it be public announcement, and so on. You already have a bond with that person, an agreement. And once you derelict, once you fail, you are liable to it. So what it now means is that even when that person writes an announcement, when the person writes an announcement and there are some provocative words and so on, yes, as a radio person, it is your responsibility to remove it, but there's a limit to what you can remove because the person has paid for it. So commercialization of radio stations, government-owned radio stations, is not the best. Then the worst now is the introduction of privately owned radio stations. I am saying it's the worst because they are purely there to do business. Nobody subsidizes them. Whatever they get is what they use to pay staff salaries, and that is why when they don't even make enough money, get enough commercials, you see people who work in the radio stations, people who are supposed to be well paid, see them living in penury because the privately owned persons, the proprietors and proprietresses of such radio stations, the owners might not pay these professionals. And these are well-trained people who are supposed to look elegant, dress very well. We have a situation where some people who work in the radio stations even dress like beggars. And when you see them, you'll be wondering, what is this person doing? If you go inside, you discover that they are not even paid appropriately, as is obtainable in other parts of the world. So commercialization of the radio station has done more harm to me than good. In spite of the fact that this country needs more radio stations. But what we need is our radio stations that will be free, that will carry out social services and so on, that will enhance good leadership, preach good governance and so on, and not radio stations that will be monitored or apply censorship, self-censorship because of restrictions as a result of commercialization and control by their owners.
Chief Oyeneke, let me give you a Hausa, maybe, I don't know, but it's the Hausa way of saying it in this part of the country. When you work with the radio or you work in a radio station, you hear the audience. I mean, it's a blind media like we all know. And so the audience will say, Ganin kuyapi jinku. Hearing you is better than seeing you. I'm talking about the disappointments here that you're talking about with the radio journalist, that when he comes out, he looks beggarly, unkempt, and you're wondering, is this voice that I listen to this person? so what you're saying in that direction, so embarrassing as it is.
And let me tell you, let me jocularly tell you this.
Okay.
I worked in Radio Benue Makurdi for so many years.
Okay.
And when I was in the radio, people will hear voices of some of us, this and that, and so on, our name. And by the time you come out, you see one person who is dressed like a hunter, like a papa. They'll be wondering, is this name I have been hearing? But God forbid, it is not supposed to be so. That is why I feel bad. I still say that government must pay attention to those who work in the radio. Do you know what it means? You will be in Kaduna, we are communicating now in Owerri, and as we are talking, somebody in Cameroon, somebody in different parts of this country, they are getting the signals of what we are saying. And by the time the story comes out now, you say, is this the story? You'll be, that type of thing. Glamour is part of what the radio should be, and that glamour should not elude those who work in the radio stations. Because when you see a person, image of somebody, you see the personality of somebody who works in the radio station, it should be so glamorous in such a way that people will like to work in the radio. But I totally agree with you. It's not supposed to be so. So the whole thing has to change.
Okay, and here is another thing that let's talk about the regulator now. For the radio station or broadcast stations, we know it's the National Broadcasting Commission that is the regulator, and we also know that it's a government-owned commission, so to say. And so we've had a running battle with the regulator and the practitioners. Here, what are your concerns here about the regulator and the practitioners?
Let me tell you, my brother, there is nothing wrong in regulating a system, including the radio. But when the regulation becomes so cowardly done, okay, well, not even cowardly done, when it becomes a sort of inimical control to the system, then there's everything wrong about that. If a trained journalist, a trained radio broadcast journalist, you know the standards, you know the ethics of the profession, you know how to conduct yourself both outside and within the studio and outside the studio. If you are employed by a credible radio station, credible radio organization, a media outfit, you don't need further regulation because of your trainings. And of course, I'm telling you that any radio station that engages professionals, good trained people, and that also organizes regular in-house training, reorientation, and so on and so forth. Such a station will need minimal level of regulation by even NBC and others, because the professionals will know what to do. The level of violation of the ethics of the profession will be very minimal, maybe minor mistakes. But a situation, what we have today is a situation where a proprietor can open the radio station. You feel this person is your brother, whether your brother is trained or not, you employ him. And he will go there and be talking and talking and talking. What you expect? He wouldn't know the ethics of the profession. Even when you train him, he may not be serious enough. And by the time he goes to the station, he does whatever he likes. And that is what led to this serious regulation by NBC and so on. But in doing that, regulators and regulatory agencies should also be mindful of the fact that they are sent to regulate and not to censor. They are sent to regulate, making sure that the radio stations do the correct thing, and not to mount pressure on the radio stations to do things that will suit the regulators or the government that set up the regulatory agency. These are different things. Censorship is quite different from you are regulating somebody who has done a wrong thing. If somebody does a wrong thing, that's something that is unprofessional. There are various ways of sanctioning the person. But a situation where somebody in a radio station is doing the correct thing, something that is factual, something that is truthful, something that is according to the ethics of the profession, and you feel that it does not go down with the ruling government, with your government, or with you even as the proprietor, the regulator wants to call you to order, to shift you to do what will suit either the owner of the radio station or the government, then such a situation is very, very condemnable and does not make for the growth of the radio stations.
Okay, and Chief, one area of concern here, because I'm still staying with the theme for this year, which is radio and trust. Now we're dealing with the audience and we're dealing with people, and we are in a democracy, and radio should be used as a unifying factor, to push democracy and to uphold it. But in this democracy that we see, we also, I just said earlier that the regulator is part of government, and so what your experience has been with the way radio stations want to push or serve the master. I'm talking about his master's voice in this too, how this has been used. For you, there is opposition, there is the ruling party and all of that going on in Nigeria, but again, radio being muzzled out by what the regulator might want to do the biddings of his master. What are your concerns here?
Now, first of all, every radio station, in fact, every media outfit has its own house style, and they are established for a purpose. If the federal government has a radio station, just like they have, a good example is the Almighty Radio Nigeria, of course, which is a standard in broadcasting in Nigeria, whether we like it or not. Everything about radio in this country, apart from BBC and VOA, where Radio Nigeria drew its own professional acumen, our standard is Radio Nigeria. Now, Radio Nigeria is owned by the federal government. And of course, the priority of whoever is working in Radio Nigeria should first of all be the unity of the country. Anything that is divisive, anything that will cause problem amongst Nigerians must be discouraged. If you are working in Radio Nigeria, you know that you must preach unity. You must also explain to the people the activities of the government. You will serve as a veritable link between the government and the governed. You will also feel the impulse of the people. Instead of attaching importance to what the governor said, what the president said, and so on, you should also go to the rural areas, get some developmental stories, assess the needs of the rural dwellers, because they own the station. Federal government-owned stations are owned by the people because they are run by the taxes of the people. So you feel the pulse of the people. So the government will learn from the people, know what to do for the people and what not to do for the people at any particular time. A situation where, because you work in a radio station, in a government-owned station, you only take one side, concentrate on government, without taking care of the masses who actually own the station, it means that you are not a good professional. But that's about Radio Nigeria. Now, for those in the private radio stations, your mandate of that station might be to focus on agriculture. Your interest might be a particular section of the society. Your interest might be a particular section of the community. That is why we even have community radio stations. Now, you don't have to deviate from that area of interest which your operator or whoever established the station has in mind. If it's focused to ensure that, look, we want to promote religious healthiness and so on, you should not deviate from that. You do that, and in doing that, make sure you focus and concentrate on that particular area. A situation where, because you feel you have an organ who is paying your salary and so on, then you want to leave the correct thing, act as a link between the government and between the people and whoever owns the station. Such a situation is not acceptable. So you must have your mandate spelled out. And by the time you do it and you are factual, you are building the trust of your audience because you have your target audience to satisfy. Once you make them lose trust, then whatever you are doing will be wrong.
The program is Perspectives and it's coming to you on Invicta 98.9. And this morning we're still celebrating World Radio Day. And that started yesterday, the 13th of February. And so we're on with it. And we're talking about radio, you and the radio, and of course the trust you can build, on your the practitioners of this, of the radio. That's talking about the radio journalist or broadcast journalist, as we say. Yeah, and sharing thoughts with us on that, Chief Fidel Onyeneke, veteran broadcaster to media consultant, and of course a public affairs analyst. He's with me, long distance call to Owerri this morning. Chief, we'll have to go for a commercial break. I'll join you after the break.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Are you serious?
Welcome back. It's the program Perspectives this morning, and we are in the celebration mood, and that's about the World Radio Day. Took off yesterday, Sunday, 13th February, and we're still in the mood of celebrating. And of course, radio people here, we're all, joining in the celebration. And this year's theme, Radio and Trust. That's the 11th edition of World Radio Day, and this year's 2022 theme is Radio and Trust. Now, how well do you trust your radio and your radio presenters? What do you hear? Producers, presenters, and all the people that get the radio out, the voices out to you out there, and sharing thoughts with me on this year's theme for this year, Radio and Trust, celebration of the occasion. Chief Fidel Onyeneke, radio veteran too, and media consultant, and of course public affairs analyst with me on a telephone call, and so we're still on it. And Chief Fidel, I wanted to be talking about this subsection of this year's theme, which is survival, of the radio. Now, survival of the radio, and talking about survival would mean, what do you put on your radio station, the content of it that will draw or attract audience and all of that, and of course the feedback that you get if you're doing well. And we can't leave the agencies here who are the ones, to make radio stations, function in terms of adverts and all of that. For you, survival of the radio and these times, how are you with that? Is the radio really surviving? Because again, the competition, healthy competition that it should be, and what we're having, some radio stations are doing better than others. And you've talked about the pay, the salaries of radio practitioners too. And in this area too, I like to bring in this thing that you also know about, the brown envelope when it comes to the radio practitioner and all of that. So tie it with the survival of the radio stations.
Thank you very much. You know why I'm laughing? Because I would have been surprised if we ended this program without talking about brand envelope.
Okay.
But let me say this without sense of responsibility. If you want to have the trust of the people, if a radio station wants the trust of the people, first of all, there should be consistency in the programming of that station. Not today you will do this, tomorrow you bring a different thing. Because you are carrying your list, you have your special listeners. Then content, program content. Whatever program you are doing must be something that will attract people, different people, irrespective of their background. The time you start deviating, you are already losing your listeners. But above all, factual reporting, factual information. Because anything you do, you try to be sentimental in giving out information, people will no longer trust you. And let me tell you, you are also talking to an audience that no matter their literacy level, they are following whatever information you are giving out. So they also have other ways of accessing your information, finding out whether what you said is correct or not. And if you want to have the trust of the people, you have to be careful in political information, so that whatever you are doing, that consistency will be there. You will not take undue and unnecessary sides. And then tribal sentiments, you shun it. Because the moment you try to favor a particular tribe in a society, whether abroad or Nigeria here, you are already losing the trust of some other people who may come from a different tribe. Religious sentiments too. These are things you have to guard. Because as a radio person, you should be seen as neutral as possible. And whatever you are doing, do it with open mind and without bias. And let me tell you, one of the things that can make you to be biased is this brown envelope you are talking about. A situation where somebody gives you money, whether it costs black or white or whatever envelope, and you take it. That person, of course, is trying to change your reasoning, change your style, trying to influence you. And as a radio person, a radio personality too, you must guard against anything that will influence you. That is the sacredness and sacrosancy in broadcasting, in a radio station. So we have found ourselves, unfortunately, in a situation where, due to lack of proper payment, no welfare facilities and that welfare things given to broadcasters and so on, they are now falling into this danger of collecting brown envelope with some other people, some other quacks and other people who call themselves journalists, even when they are not journalists. I describe such people as imposters. Because a real professional broadcaster should resist anybody trying to influence you, giving you a brown envelope. Remember, brown envelope and bribery are different from somebody appreciating you. Appreciation is a different thing, but people confuse it. And what we have today is also a situation where you will want to carry out a genuine information about a development. And you now go, first of all, as a broadcaster, as a news person, to inform the person who you want to write this story about, that look at what I had that happened in your place or that you did. We are going to broadcast it. You are not a professional. Because you want the person to either stop your information by either paying you money or doing something. And that is highly unethical. So the point I'm making is that brown envelope must continue to be condemned, while at the same time, proprietors and employers of broadcasters, radio station managers, and so on must make sure that they are well paid, considering the importance of their of the profession, considering the sacredness of the profession. That is why I've always advocated that there must be a special salary structure for all broadcasters, and if possible, all journalists, media workers, especially those owned by the government, while the privately owned ones must draw from that particular salary structure and make sure that there is a minimum you can pay somebody who is working in the media house.
Yeah, you said something, and I just still want to hammer on that. Still on the practitioners here, that you gave FRCN as a standard, for radio stations to look up to, because professionals who are seen there or are seen there as working, and so they still hold on to the ethics of the profession. Now, the ethics of the profession, how well, with the commercialization of radio, with private-owned media radio stations all over the place, the ethics of the profession here. Having listened to radio stations and worked too there, what's your assessment of upholding the ethics of the profession?
Commercialization has become a big problem towards the upliftment of the ethics of the profession. In a bid to be professional, you might run foul of the conditions you entered with whoever is placing commercial or whoever is sponsoring anything in a radio station. It is not supposed to be so. That is why we must continue to say that in as much as radio stations want money, in as much as commercialization is not an evil thing, there must be a limit to what should be commercialized. Commercialization has even made it impossible for people to now do the work in accordance to the ethics. If you get a story from a particular community, a developmental story, you will give preference to the one that was paid for, probably by a company or by an individual. By so doing, you're already suppressing story from a rural area, thereby going against the ethics of the journalism profession, because it is your duty, your social responsibility, to act as a link between the government and the governed, to act as a link between, to give the people of Nigeria, people of the world, opportunity to express their views and so on. Okay, let me ask you, how many journalists have gone to the rural areas to interview a peasant, a farmer or peasant, whatever? That is the thing. But if a governor visits that particular area and you see people lined on the road, some people drinking water from the same pot with donkeys and so on, instead of highlighting those people who don't have water, drinking with donkeys and so on, the interest of the journalists will be what the governor said and the response by the chairman of the local government. By so doing, you're already doing unethical things. And when people discover, they will no longer have that trust, because they know that whatever information they give you, you might not even use it. So these are the bane. I am trying to say that I am not against commercialization totally, but commercialization should not be at the expense of what professional duties that the media houses, especially those in the radio, should perform. Because radio must remain purely a social service. That is the essence of a radio station. Apart from this commercialization thing that came in because of probably high cost of radio equipment and the high cost of probably paying staff and so on, which they don't even pay, because I'm not satisfied with the salaries we pay most of the private radio in the private radio stations in this country. I keep saying it. Go to Owerri, go to Abuja, go to everywhere. I'm sure the situation will not be different in that year, Kaduna. Wherever you go, our people, media practitioners, those in the radio, are not paid. When you compare with the services they render, the risk they take. Because as a radio person, you may say the truth, which of course you're supposed to say the truth, but somebody must be hurt by your truth. And the next thing, you are haunted. The next thing, the person will say, look, you have hurt me. That is the risk of working in the radio station. But let truth remain your watchword, because it is only when you say the truth that you will enjoy the trust of the people.
Okay, Chief Onyeneke, let's come to our audience now and take your views too and hear you on World Radio Day. The celebration came up on yesterday and we're still in it, and so let's get your views about the radio and of course this year's theme, radio and trust. How well you've received that, or you're receiving that. Sharing thoughts with me, I still want to acknowledge my guest, Chief Fidel Onyeneke, long distance call to Owerri, where he resides, and of course a veteran journalist, a radio journalist too, and of course a media consultant and commentator on national and international matters. my guest this morning on the show. So we also, those, following us on our Facebook page, Invicta 98.9. Let's also get to hear your comments. So we're with the audience now on 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989, or 070 87800 989. 0870 87800 989. Your calls now. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Aduka calling from Kudene.
All right, Adukaya, let's hear you.
Yeah. Your guest has spoken credibly well. He really impressed me based on what he said. But I had him talking about commercialization. Is it commercialization of this radio house or so?
Yeah.
Really, it's a good one. But how are you sure we can put it into practice in this country? The one that is being run by the government, how far have they gone in managing it? That is the issue. Commercialization is a very good one. They should encourage it. All those private investors who come into it, people should invest in it so that at least they can improve it.
Okay.
But not saying it that matters. Doing it is the most important thing. Sometimes in Nigeria we say it, but doing it, we find it very difficult. Implementation is a problem in this country.
All right.
Probably we can voice it, but to do it is always a problem.
Okay.
So I am urging Nigerians to come all out and support it.
Okay.
It's a very good one. It's a good call at the right time.
All right, Adukaya.
Let's put it into practice.
Okay.
That's my take.
All right.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you. All right, still with your calls. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Dr.
Yes, good morning.
And good morning to you also.
All right.
My name is Dr. Gabriel.
Yes, come with Gabriel.
What I wanted to say is that they have spoken very, very well. And what I spoke of the journalist is that because you will discover that when somebody wants to say the truth, when they probably come out against the government, that person may be in danger. That doesn't mean that it is a way to hotel all this. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Comrade Gabriel. All right. Still one more call and then come back to our guest. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Twalabi.
Good morning.
And I wish you people all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Engineer Emmanuel.
All right.
And good morning to your guest. I think your guest has spoken very well. The way I want to ask, how do we come out on this issue of brand envelope? Now, a media that ought to be informing the people in the daily basis now have compromised standards. Standard in the sense that nothing is being done. That you hear it on the national TV or whatsoever radio that something has been done. And when you go to that side, you see nothing on ground. How can we come out from this?
Okay.
Now, if we'll be able to have, that is why we are talking about getting people that we have the country at heart. But the politicians have succeeded in destroying everything. Now, let's take an example with the Minister for Information. Now, look at it. They will say different things, and the media, it is what they tell the people to send to the public. If you send otherwise, it's either they sanction the people. I remember what happened in the villa. One of the reporters sent something. The next day he was removed from there. How can we change the narrative of things to make the media to be independent, that nobody interrupt? Let them say the way they see the things and let them send it to the public.
Okay.
And forget about this brand envelope of a thing. It's not helping matters. If there will be a welfare package given to the media so that they will be up and doing in their, let them be specialized in what they are doing. I think it will help us go a long way.
Okay, Engineer Emmanuel.
Good morning.
All right, good morning. All right, Chief Fidel, let me come to you. My guests here, all appreciative of what you've said today. Really happy that I have you as my guest this morning. So they all appreciate what you're saying. And questions been asked. Let me take it from the rear now. And Engineer Emmanuel is very concerned about what comes out of the Ministry of Information. And sometimes we hear government information, but what is on ground is different. So how do we balance this up? He's concerned about that. And again, intimidation of journalists here. Carry reports that was true and get sacked for telling the truth. Your concerns here. And again, I got this from Comrade Gabriel too. Wants improvement in salaries of the practitioners, and also, talking about trust too. how do we get, the people's trust with what comes out of radio? And so he's worried about that. And for Adokaya too, as far as it's concerned, nothing wrong with commercialization, and of course, people, proprietors that own private radio stations, that we should want more of that, and of course, so information can get around. But he is concerned that we do all the talking, but we don't get the action done. So your concerns here, Chief Onyeneke.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate all the callers. But let me quickly say that time was in this country when we had well-trained professionals who were in the Ministry of Information and other places as information officers. When they write a press release, you see balance in their story. You see truth in whatever press release they bring. If you use a press release from the Federal Ministry of Information or any state Minister of Information, you will be satisfied that you've given out accurate information to people. But unfortunately, the situation is no longer the same today. What the information officers bring us from most of the ministries of information and even Federal Ministry of Information are stories that they want to suit their principle. You give a story, it will not be balanced, and you mount pressure on the government-owned radio stations to use them. It is deceiving the people, because the person that will bear the brunt is the radio station that used that story. Of course, when we say story, outsiders may not know, but that is professionally what that is the professional team, but they call it news. When such stories come, and you say because it's coming from information, Minister of Information, and you use it, somebody will tell you, no, this is not the situation. How can you now trust that source again? You will no longer trust the source, and it affects your radio. So that is why most radio stations and media houses no longer rely on press releases and so on from Federal Ministry of Information and state-owned, state ministries of information, until they stop influencing the information officers and encourage them to be doing the right thing. Another thing that will make people trust you is when you balance your stories very well. Once you're a radio station, you are carrying a one-sided story. It means you are not serious. You must give fair hearing to the various parties, and there must be attribution. People have forgotten the 5 Ws and the Y and so on and so forth. Where did this happen? What happened? When? And so on.
And where?
Who? Where? And so on. I mean, I'm not trying to teach journalism here, but the point I'm making is that those basic things are very important. The moment you follow them and you have appropriate attributions, people, your listener will trust you. Your listener will know that you know what you are doing because you are giving out the correct fact. Now, we've already talked about the need for special salary structure for both government-owned and the privately owned radio stations. And I want to tell you that if anybody sets up a radio station, or in fact any other media house, and you feel you cannot pay for the professionals, don't go for them. You cannot employ a doctor when you're not ready to pay for the services of the doctor. A journalist, a broadcaster, who went through this appropriate training, went to school, and so on and so forth, must be appreciated. In fact, you are doing a very sensitive work that somebody can even equate you with other professionals. So that's exactly what I'm saying. And once you are in the private sector, you know you can't pay for such services. Please don't go and bring out a professional and you want to treat him like a slave. No, it is not acceptable. Now, for the somebody, remind me of the third question, please.
Okay, that one is on. I think this was coming from Dokaya on commercial, radio stations and public stations. That we should have them side by side, and there's nothing wrong with having more of that.
No. You see, there is nothing wrong. But we have already established the fact that there is nothing wrong in commercialization, but that there is everything wrong when you use commercialization to intimidate your people, to make them not to carry out their duties in the most professional manner. If you place priority to commercialization above professionalism, then you are killing your radio station. That is the truth. You may not know. You may think you are making all the money, but people will not say, I think you that station. Once you pay, they say what you want them to say. You will not hear when they are saying it. But once it is time for your program, they will tune off and go to another station. If you go to your news, what they are hearing is this person said. He said, according to him, he said. They say, I beg, they paid for it. What they paid, some may be true, some may not be true. But if you go deep, give people fundamental stories, rebalance their stories well without biases, without religious, ethnical, and so on. Do it in the most ethical manner. People will listen to your station and they will enjoy it. I am not against commercialization, but it has to be done in such a way that it will not subdue the professional duties of the broadcasters and even the broadcast station itself.
Okay, Chief, let's come. We have people following us on our Facebook page, and let's get to hear some comments. My colleague here, Joy Lakewood, will take this.
All right. We have one from Zachariah John Dam. He says, I've been an ardent listener of radio right from childhood. And one thing that has happened to radio broadcasting is the introduction of GSM telecommunication in Nigeria and the social media now. It has made radio so interactive and interesting. But my concern is that some radio journalists or presenters are not living up to expectations in terms of being up to date with current issues. At times, I hear some presenters making wrong pronunciations and grammatical errors which sound so embarrassing and unpresentable.
All right, I want you to take that. We've talked about it, but interesting. I find this very interesting. Contribution from
Zachariah John Dam.
From Zachariah John
Dam.
Okay, John Dam.
Very wonderful contribution.
Yes,
I want to take it. In fact, that man made a very wonderful contribution. For you to be a journalist, for you to be a radio person in particular, you must be ready to study on daily basis. You must know the correct pronunciations of not just English words or whatever local language you are using, but also names, and so on and so forth. Not when you see chaos, C-H-A-O-S, you call it chaos in the radio. What are you teaching the people? When school children, primary 1, primary 2, everybody, they are listening to you. And by the time you see chaos and you say chaos, they will know that you already don't know it. So you cannot give what you don't have. Remember, we have this educational aspect of radio, not just entertainment, not just information, education too. So I quite agree with him. That is why there is need for training and retraining on daily basis, even on the job. Unfortunately, most stations, including the private ones, don't even have opportunities of training their people, and that is wrong.
All right, Joy, do we still have... okay, that will just be all. But again, let me come down just before we, put the program to a stop. On intimidation of the radio journalist. We talked about it earlier. We've said that in states, we see this happen because the chief executive may just not like, what is coming out from that station. And, of course, goes after the radio presenter or producer or can blacklist in that radio station. Now, these are forms of intimidation that we see in this profession. How to handle that? And I wanted to bring you to, those that we say should defend the journalists, the radio journalists. Ratau is there, the NUJ is there. So their role here, let's get to hear how much they're doing for the practitioner here.
You see, that's another problem. Unfortunately, we have Nigeria Union of Journalists, which of course I was at the national level of NUJ. I served as a national trustee after serving 2 terms as chairman of NUJ in Imo State. Okay, we have the Newspaper Proprietary Association of Nigeria. We have the Nigerian Press Council. We have BON, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, BON, and so on. When there are people, when their members are intimidated, are harassed, they appear like toothless bulldogs. It's not supposed to be so. We even have a situation where somebody in a broadcast station, we carry a factual story, and then a minister or commissioner of information complains, and instead of you standing by your staff, somebody who is working under you, you will allow that person to die or face music. The next thing you will do, you are directed to sack him, and you will sack. It is wrong. Our leaders of media houses, must also be people who are strong in the profession, people who know their worth. You mustn't be influenced by external people. But if your staff does the right thing, it is your responsibility to query such a person. It is your responsibility to correct your staff and not to allow an outsider, including proprietor of a radio station, to now say, look, he might even overlook the general manager of the station and order that such a reporter should be sacked. It is not the best. So intimidation has remained there. But I want to appeal to various unions, organizations, and so on to sit up, including NUJ, And above all, most of these privately owned radio stations, they don't even have unions. They don't unionize. They don't join appropriate unions due to intimidation by their proprietors and their employers. Reason being that if you are in a union, you can team up and fight certain bad things happening to your staff and to the station. But when you are intimidated and you don't join, then these unions will leave you at your own to suffer at your own penury. So these are the things. Intimidation can be stopped through these unions, through effective activities of BON, Newspaper Proprietary Association of Nigeria, MPC, and so on and so forth. Let them live up to expectation and carry out their duties without fear or favor.
All right, Chief Fidel Onyeneke, always a delight having you on this show. And this is where we draw the curtains on the program Perspectives this morning. And so, yes, okay, and
yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank you for coming on the show this morning with us. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, let me also thank you for having me. And to continue to tell you, I don't know the system in your organization, but radio broadcast and broadcasting is one of the best in terms of media activities. Once you are qualified, you know what you are doing, you read every day, you update your knowledge and so on, you will carry out satisfactory duties without fear. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Chief Fidel. And that will just be about the size of it on the program, Perspectives this morning. And sharing thoughts with Chief Fidel Onyeneke, a veteran radio broadcaster, a media consultant, a public affairs analyst, and a commentator on national and international matters. Long distance call to Weri in Imo State. He's been my guest on the program this morning. And I'd like to thank my colleague, Joy Lakewatt, for connecting me with the people out there. And Wisdom, thank you for putting us in the pictures. We'll come back with Perspectives tomorrow. Have a good day.